Welcome to Bond and Bondage Helpline, where we untangle human emotions. No safe word required. I'm Stella Black. Hit the like and subscribe buttons for your weekly glimpse behind the curtain of human behavior. For the extended version of this video, which includes practical tips and real-life scenarios, please join me on Patreon. The link is in the description box below. Self-esteem and self-confidence may sound like siblings, but they're more like cousins, related, yet very different dinner guests. Self-esteem is that quiet, stubborn voice that says, "You matter." Period. It doesn't care if you ace the test, botch the presentation, or miss the last train. It rests on a bedrock belief that you're worthy of love and belonging just for showing up as a human being, messy hair, awkward laugh, and all. Self-confidence, meanwhile, is more like a favorite pair of shoes. Great for certain occasions, not meant for every event. It's the belief that you can do specific things well, cook a killer lasagna, nail a job interview, or remember how to parallel park when the pressure's on. You can strut like a peacock in one area and feel like a shy house cat in another. Both matter for a balanced, resilient psyche, but they're built differently. You can walk into a room radiating self-confidence and still carry the sting of low self-esteem. Conversely, someone with solid self-esteem can shrug off a stumble because their worth doesn't hinge on their win-loss record. To build self-esteem, you have to pay attention to that voice in your head, the one that narrates every slip-up and victory. CBT offers tools like thought records to help you notice when your inner commentator is sounding more like a heckler than a coach. Practice talking to yourself like you would to a dear friend. Collect evidence of moments you acted with kindness, integrity, or grit. Those moments, regardless of external applause, help you internalize the belief that you're enough. To build self-confidence, CBT recommends behaving like a scientist. Pick an area where you want to grow, break it down into manageable steps, and run the experiment. Will you stumble? Sure. Will you learn? Absolutely. Will your brain notice that you survived, adapted, and maybe even improved? You bet. Every tiny win rewires those neural connections, making "I can do this" feel more like a fact and less like a pep talk. In the end, self-esteem is knowing you have worth regardless of how the day goes. Self-confidence is knowing you can rise to the day's challenges, and that even if you don't stick the landing, you're still worth standing on the beam. Together, they form a dynamic duo. One gives you roots, the other gives you wings. Why does the distinction matter? Because it's the difference between strutting into a room and hoping you can fool everyone versus strolling in, knowing you're okay, regardless of how the night goes. A person can be wildly confident, crushing deadlines, impressing the boss, running marathons, and still have the self-esteem of a damp paper towel. Think of the high-achieving perfectionist, polished on the outside, panicked on the inside, desperately hoping that their next win will make them feel enough, at least for a moment. In fact, clinical psychology research shows that perfectionism is often linked to low self-esteem and higher risk of depression and burnout. That's according to the article written by Flutt and Hewitt in 2002. Meanwhile, someone with solid self-esteem can walk out of a botched presentation, shrug, and move on knowing their worth is intact. They understand that failing at a task doesn't make them a failure as a person. Studies by Kernis conducted in 2003 have found that people with secure self-esteem tolerate setbacks more effectively, viewing them as temporary and external rather than internal indictments of their worth. That's why making the distinction between self-esteem and self-confidence isn't just splitting hairs. It's what allows CBT and other therapeutic approaches to do their best work. When you recognize where the struggle lies, you can target interventions precisely. CBT can help a person with low self-esteem challenge global, self-deprecating thoughts and build a more stable internal sense of worth. At the same time, CBT can guide someone with low self confidence to create behavioral experiments that test their abilities and build a realistic, experience based belief in their confidence. In short, knowing which muscle needs the workout is the first step to getting stronger where it really counts, creating a resilient sense of worth that doesn't rise and fall with every win, loss, or awkward moment. Signs of low self esteem, and what to do about them. Have you ever felt like your inner voice is less of a coach and more like a heckler? Let's call out some common signs of low self esteem, and I'll give you concrete CBT tools to quiet the noise. Chronic self criticism or feelings of worthlessness. Why am I like this? I always mess up. If your internal monologue sounds like a roast you didn't sign up for, you're not alone. Low self esteem often shows up as a relentless internal commentator. Try this CBT exercise, the thought flip. When you notice a harsh thought, write it down. Ask, is this fact or just an opinion? What evidence supports this thought? What evidence contradicts it? Then rewrite it. For example, old thought, I always ruin everything. New thought, I've had setbacks, but I've also handled challenges well before. It's exhausting relying on applause to feel okay. True worth doesn't hinge on the latest like or wink from across the room. Try this CBT exercise, the value list. Spend 5 minutes listing 5 core qualities you admire about yourself, traits that wouldn't disappear if no one was watching. Practice reminding yourself of these daily until they feel like bedrock. Fear of rejection, social avoidance, and people pleasing. Better stay quiet, better agree with them, better stay small, better safe than sorry. A lot of people trade authenticity for belonging because the thought of rejection feels like a death sentence. Try this CBT exercise, the discomfort challenge. Pick one low-stakes situation this week to state your opinion or make a request. For example, tell the waiter you'd like a different table or voice a thought in a group chat. Observe how it feels and write down the outcome. Odds are you'll survive, and the more you tolerate that discomfort, the more resilient you become. Negative self-talk and all or nothing thinking. If I'm not the best, I'm the worst. If one thing goes wrong, everything is ruined. The brain loves its dramatics, doesn't it? CBT is great for catching those catastrophic thoughts in the act. Try this CBT exercise, the and technique. Revisit a negative thought and tack an and to the end. For example, old thought, I messed up this project, so I'm a failure. New thought, I messed up this project, and I can learn from it for next time. This tiny shift opens space for growth and gives that internal heckler a run for its money. Low self-esteem doesn't have to be a life sentence. By spotting its sneaky signs and replacing old patterns with CBT-informed tools, you can shift from living under its thumb to living from a place of strength, worth, and resilience. Remember, you're more than your worst thought, and every thought you rewrite is a step closer to a better, truer story. That's enough for now. Your scars might be on the inside, but scar patches come in all shapes and sizes. Find your patch and protect them with your life. See you next week.